Welcome to another episode of the Shirley Temple Society, a podcast that puts the fun in functioning alcoholic and reminds you that you can have a ball without alcohol. If you're just choosing to live an alcohol-free lifestyle, or if you're a little dry curious, I'm your hostess with the mostest, Cluos, your resident sober Betty, here to share my experiences with you as we go along this journey together.
This specific episode is all about balance and how you determine if you're putting too much energy into any one area of your life, how to finally find some inner peace. We're also thrilled to welcome Andrea Fenton, owner of Align AF, who is a holistic nutritionist who offers a personalized approach to you and your needs.
We do offer the disclaimer that this podcast may touch on sensitive topics like mental health, alcohol, or substance abuse, and more. We are not a therapy organization and don't make recommendations for specific individuals. This information is shared to be strictly educational, and you should always follow up with your own primary and mental health providers before doing anything. This episode is sponsored in part by Judy Shulak, your fairy godmother. If you'd like to support what we're doing, you can become a society investor by emailing hi@cluos.com to get started. That's hi@KALUOHS.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Shirley Temple Society, everyone. I'm excited not only to be recording another episode, but we have a special guest joining us this week. Like I mentioned, she's a holistic nutritionist, and we're going to unpack how to get more inner peace one step at a time. I will also offer our listeners the disclaimer that we are recording this episode via Zoom, which means I'm not in the fancy sound studio, and you may hear the occasional train, but we will try and minimize disruptions as much as possible. So we're doing it live. And with that, Andrea, I am so thrilled to welcome you to the studio, to the Shirley Temple Society, if you will. But I just want to kick it off by letting you introduce yourself to our listeners. So who are you and what do you do kind of generally?
Hi, yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, I am an integrative nutrition counselor. I worked for 20 years in dentistry, and but I also have additional training, additional schooling in health services that I earned my degree from UCF in health services, and I also have my integrative nutrition health coaching certification. So even the last 20 years, or the 20 years that I was practicing in dentistry, as time went on, I got into not just what was going on with people's oral health, but just health in general. And I just have transitioned into fully investing all of my energy into helping people in that way because it's so important. I was an overweight child, and my parents, both sides of my family just have struggled with obesity. And my dad passed away of a heart attack at age 41. I was only 13 at the time. And so as I approached adulthood, I made the commitment to live a healthy lifestyle. And it's just something that's always been very important to me. And so I think I have a unique perspective, working in the health field with people's mouths, but seeing how that is connected to the body, and then how our mental health, our emotional, spiritual health, everything is so connected. So I'm very passionate about helping people do with what we're talking about today, and maintaining balance and how important that is in our lives to maintain our overall health.
Yeah, and I know that in terms of your attention to detail and your care, because that's actually how we met, was through dentistry.
Right.
Through Oasis Dental. Shout out, they're a great place here in Orlando. And after we met, we had formed that bond, and we were only seeing each other like every 6 months for checkups, but you were just so personable and easy to talk to that when I got that Facebook message from you a few years later that said, "Hey, I'm going out and on my own, I'm starting this YouTube channel, would you be on it?" I was really thrilled to participate in that with you. And I love that we're doing the thing with the network and the community that we're building that, like we said before we started recording, that I got to be on your show and then you can be on our show and we can
Yeah.
support our things together. So if you haven't already seen it, go check out Align AF on YouTube and you can see not only the Sober Betties episode, but all of the other episodes that have come from that and the ones recorded before mine. And one of the things I also noticed about you when you were my dental hygienist,
Yeah.
is just how calm and even keel and consistent you are. So maybe you have an example in your life as you've had those priorities that you were talking about, whether it's battling obesity or just having a general pulse on your health and what you're doing. Do you have an example of maybe a time when you kind of knew things were out of whack and needed to be addressed or adjusted in your life?
Yes, there was actually another office I'd worked at prior to where we met, where I was working overtime every week. It was at least 50, 60 hours a week. And my schedule changed every week. It wasn't even the same days or same hours. And I was just, and my schedule was so packed. I was so stressed and overwhelmed. I had so much packed into every appointment, and I didn't know what time I was going to get home every night. And it was just like, I didn't even have time to eat during the day at work. Like there was just no time. And then I'd get home and I'd be ravenous and I would just eat like thousands of calories, I'm sure, every night, and then just have to go to sleep and get up and do it all over again the next day, which is so, so not good for your health. That was not sustainable. Yeah, that was definitely a time where I'm very much a person who tries to like stick it out and yeah, just gotta push through, power through. You need the job, you
It's
need.
the grind, it's the hustle, like.
Right, exactly. And oh, if this is what I have to do, but it's like sometimes we get so stuck in what we think we should do or what we think we need, or that we kind of don't see what that there are other ways to achieve what we need to achieve. Like I was able to get another job, I knew that, that that was just not going to be sustainable. So there are times, yeah, where I think we just need to check in with ourselves and just be like, okay, is this something I can see myself doing a year, 5 years from now, or do I need to work towards making some sort of change now in order to not let this get the best of me in the near future?
Yeah, I think that happens a lot with people, especially when you're in certain industries where you feel like it's almost like a necessary evil, where people will tell you in your career that you have to work this hard or work this many hours. I mean, in my own example, I always saw these patterns that I would jump into a job and be giving so much of myself that
Mhm.
I would just let it keep taking more and more and more. It'd be more of my time, more of my energy. And, a lot of times, if you're familiar with like the agency structure, I worked at a tech agency and then later at another marketing agency. And that agency life is so drink the Kool-Aid. It's very like, are you one of us? Are you working as hard as we are? Because
Mhm.
it almost felt like if you left early or if you didn't work all these extended hours that you weren't working as hard as everybody else. And so you get in this mindset of I have to put my body through this and I have to put up with it because this is how I'm going to be successful and achieve these things.
Mhm.
And especially when I moved into the role that I was in most recently before my current position, where I was a nonprofit executive director. And I was so proud of myself because it was the highest title I had by myself achieved. That was a real title. It wasn't just kind of a made up, like, let's call me this and go from there. And I was
Mhm.
so proud that I had achieved that. But the job was tearing me apart. And it
Mhm.
wasn't so much that I wasn't doing a good job, but it left no space for anything else.
Mhm.
And because it's kind of like when we talk about when your cup is so full or your cup is overflowing and you don't have enough resources,
Mhm.
it left no space for creativity. And what I've
Mhm.
noticed now is because I am less busy in the day to day, like putting out fires, I do have more space to be creating different things and allowing different things to flourish. Like this podcast is a perfect example of that.
Yes,
That if I
yeah.
didn't have the bandwidth, there'd be no chance of this taking off and being what it is today. So I appreciate you sharing that insight. Is there any, I guess, suggestion when you're doing that check-in or way that you first try to alleviate that pinch when you feel that imbalance in your life?
Well, first of all, something that this is stuck in my mind for years. The therapist I had years ago, I remembered this. Something he said to me, he said, if you feel like you're talking yourself into something, it is probably not the right thing for you. So like, if you keep trying to like say, okay, no, I got to stick it out. I got to stick it out. I got to do this job. I got to please this person. I got to be there for this, show up for this, say yes to too many things. It's just like, if you're taught, well, yeah, I should, then it's probably something has got to give. That's probably not really what you should be doing, just something to keep in mind. Um,
And that could be true for relationships too, listeners, just so you
oh,
know.
oh
Like
my
if you're like,
gosh,
of course I'm just gonna
absolutely.
ignore all the red flags because oh my gosh, we
Yeah,
had this trauma bonding experience or because he loves me or whatever fill in the blank is.
yeah,
Like if you're really trying to prove it to yourself, that also might be a thing to
absolutely.
check in on.
Yes, or if when you after spending time with that person, once you go back home or step away or whatever, if you feel a sense of relief afterward, that your nervous system is telling you something. If you feel like you're always on high alert, and even sometimes if we're just not in tune with ourselves and with our bodies, and we're not paying attention to these signals, like you said, the red flags, if you just pause. That's why it's so important to slow down a little bit. We're so used to go, 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 go. Slowing down a little bit, not being so rushed in the way that you do things, you will be able to listen to your body and listen to these signals and just yeah, like pay attention, like, oh yeah, oh, I am more calm now that I'm not,
But it's
with that
hard to
person
find that.
anymore.
But it's hard to
Yeah.
find that, right? Because to actually check in with yourself, you almost need total peace and total quiet and like to actually be alone with yourself. And one of the things that probably goes hand in hand with that type of balance, whether you're looking at moderation from sweets and high calorie foods, or you're
Mhm.
looking at moderation from toxic environments and people, there's also that moderation people talk about with social media of
Yes.
consumption. And there's this near addiction to multitasking. And a perfect example that I was giving to someone is imagine you're doing the laundry. Are you comfortable doing the laundry with silence? Or do you get
Hmm.
all antsy and you're like, I got to put ear pods in and put a podcast on or just have something else playing because
Yeah.
I can't be alone with a single task. We have this, we get all antsy and prickly, like we need multiple things happening at the same time to be like, oh, this amount of stimulation is what I need. Do you notice that too?
Yes, yes, and it's important to yeah, to like, people probably do that and don't even pay attention because they've been in the habit of doing it for so long. Like, I've always got to have this not in the background or be doing this many things at once. You're so right. You're so dead on with that, because I don't know how many people are aware of that. Like, when you are in that rush, rush, rush mode all the time, that's when you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. And when you're doing that, your body is utilizing glucose. So that's its quickest, most easily, most readily available energy source. So when you're going through that, and you're in that mode, you're just burning through that constantly. So your body's going to look for more of that. That's why if you're stressed, if you're, in that frantic kind of mindset or headspace for a long time, you're just constantly, that's why people have a hard time breaking habits of like, oh, I gotta grab the sweets, or I gotta whether it's that, or whether it's social media, or whether it's all these things that they're maybe like overindulging in, whatever that may look like for them. That's why that habit is so hard to break, because they're not breaking the habit that they really need to break, which is not being go 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 all
Right.
the time.
Well, and I feel like a lot of these things that we're talking about, whether they're red flags or whether they're just kind of tinted pink flags or whatnot, a lot of these contribute to one another. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, like if I'm go, 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 and I remember before I moved in with my boyfriend and we kind of took on the same type of flow and schedule, which has been very healthy for me.
Yeah.
But when I was living at my own house and I would be in that go, go, go mindset, there were some days where I would sit down at my desk and I would be so productive because I was getting all of this stuff done, but I would literally sit there and maybe get up and go to the bathroom like twice. And I would maybe be drinking water, but more likely than not, I was drinking just a caffeinated drink to push me through the day. And
Mm-hmm.
then with as a goal to not get up, maybe I would have like a protein bar, a granola bar for breakfast and or lunch. And then I
Mm-hmm.
would like Uber Eats or Postmates or get some kind of delivery food to get me food so I could stay sitting there and I wouldn't even have to stop to cook, to clean, to do anything. And I could just keep sitting there. And I mean, that's not good for your circulatory system to just be sitting there
No.
and be locked in. It's not good because chances are whatever I just got delivered was more expensive than it needed to be and probably higher caloric, all the, not the best food I could
Right.
be eating. So because we stay in that go, 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 there's actually a number of layers that are you're worse off because you're setting yourself up. And in one side, I'm like, but look at how productive I've been. I've gotten all these things done, but it's kind of at the sake or, sacrificing these other areas of
Yeah.
balance that people could be looking at.
And also on top of that, it's not good for your brain to be too sedentary with like what you said with the circulatory system. If you're not circulating, of course, everywhere in your body, but like if your brain isn't getting that blood flow, that's not good for your brain either. I mean, so many things like Alzheimer's, for example, that starts decades, manifests in ourselves physically on a cellular level decades before symptoms or, it can be diagnosed. So yeah, all these little tiny investments that we want to make every day for our future selves and our current selves.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you for sharing those insights and the ways that you've noticed in yourself and in other people how to kind of do this check-in. And I'm sure that our listeners would be interested. Well, I'm sure they can relate to the examples that you gave since they
Mhm.
were so prolific. And there's just so many ways that this can apply in terms of balance in general. But
Mhm.
let's say, okay, you're self-aware, you're checking in, you're working on yourself, and it's good to feel that gut instinct of I'm talking myself into this. Maybe this is something that needs to change, but what do you do with this information and how do you transition what you think your mind is telling you and your body's telling you and what changes need to happen? How do you transition that to being a plan that you can actually take and make it tangible to follow on a regular basis and kind of build a new routine around?
So, well, it's funny. Speaking of tangible, I actually have right here something, and I did share this post recently on my social media for everybody out there. If you want to refer to this, screenshot it, use this as an exercise you can do for yourself monthly. This is from my personal gratitude journal. It is a life wheel, and it has all these different categories of our lives that we need to nourish: our physical health, our mental health, relationships, recreation, finances, career, spirituality, all of these things. And you color in from 1 to 10 each little like slice of pie on the wheel, what you 10 being what you've been investing in most with lately, like that you feel most comfortable with, you're doing really well at, and then 1, being the least. So I'm a very visual person. So if you do that, like I said, maybe once a month, you can just kind of see, just at a glance, you just color it, and then at the end, look at it, be like, oh, okay. So maybe I do need to focus a little bit more on spending more time with my recreation. Like Sarah, for you, it might be, oh, I need to get into like painting a little bit more. I need to, maybe that's why I feel so off. Maybe I didn't realize how much I let that, kind of get put on the back burner this past month or so. And that's, really gonna feed my soul and make me feel, obviously you'll feel more calm doing that. It's something, anything that you do that brings you peace like that, that can be a little bit like, oh, hey, like check in. You need to give that a little bit, that part of your life a little bit more time, in the next 30 days and then check in again. So, yeah.
I think that I saw that post and I think that's a
Yeah.
great visual. My toxic trait is always believing that I could bullet journal and believing that
Mhm.
I could like draw all these things out and be like, I'm artsy. I could do a journal like this. So I've
Yeah.
seen similar graphs to that with that life planner where you
Yeah.
kind of fill in the different pie charts. And I love the example that you gave about, me with the painting because there are some times and some months that that are, you might track or our listeners might track and it might not have been something that you were intentionally neglecting. It might
Right.
have just been something that, because of all of the other things you were doing, you didn't have time to put energy into that. But
Mhm.
I've also heard people say we make time for the things that matter for us the most, right? So I think it is a great exercise because it allows people to see, oh, you know what? This month I did do a lot of travel. So I didn't do a lot of self-care because I was doing all this travel. And then
Mhm.
maybe it's making a promise to yourself that says, even in months when I travel a lot, here's how I'm going to make sure to still make time for self-care and do things like that. So
Mhm.
you can look at these charts, and by checking in and checking in more regularly, you're going to be able to see your own trends and plots of life, right? And then you'll be able to say, was this my choice that I neglected it? That I was like, I don't care about self-care. Like that's the first thing to go, kick it to the curb. Or did it just kind of get squeezed out by the other stuff
Right.
that you were doing? So there's no right or wrong. It's not an assignment. It's not a quiz. You don't get like an A or a
Right.
D. It's not graded. It's just to show you kind of data about your life.
Right.
And if we're going to be all like analytical and be all techie with like AI and all this different stuff, like get some data on yourself. What's your own algorithm? Like what's going on with you?
Right. And going back to what you said about how, that previous job that you had where you were, working so much and putting in so much time and effort and all this, and you weren't doing things that fed your soul, outside of that, where you are now, where you do have, it sounds like more of a balance with that. When you make time for those things or you readjust your life to where you're incorporating those things that you want that are good for you, you're able to show up for work or for all these other areas. Like everything is connected. I always say this, but it's true. Like you are better for it in every other aspect of your life. So yeah, it's so important to do that just for your overall health and your overall like just well-being. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will say, as much of a workaholic as I am, being in that go, go, go headspace and mind space, that illusion of look at how productive I am because I did all these things. I mean, that's like going through college and passing with like B's and C's averages. Like, yeah, I did it, I got through it, but did you, how much quality work did you produce during that time
Right.
versus how much quality work could you have produced if you had a little bit more of a relaxed state, if you took your time with it versus it's kind of the same as people who leave everything to the last minute and procrastinate, right? if
Mhm.
you if you always push things out to the extreme like that, sure, you might get it done, you might have a final product, but it's kind of like getting a good night's sleep. You're going to have a better next day because you set yourself up for success in that way. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate you providing that super helpful tool to allow people to plot it themselves and do those check-ins. And like Andrea said, you can do that monthly. You can check in more regularly. I don't think it would probably be that different week to week. So I think monthly, or if you don't have that kind of discipline, at least quarterly, if you would check in with
Right.
yourself in that way, it kind of
Yeah.
helps you know where those buckets are.
Hmm.
All right. So Andrea, I just have to say thank you again for coming on this show and sharing your insights with our Shirley Temple Society listeners. So now that we've talked about what you offer and Align AF, how can they follow you and learn more?
I'm Align_AF on Instagram and TikTok. I also have the Align AF YouTube channel, as you previously mentioned. And yeah, so you can contact me. I do free initial consultations. I do individual and group sessions, employee wellness, if there are any companies who would like me to provide that for their employees. I'm also doing a wellness talk in the if you live locally, the Longwood Community Building, Thursday, January 9th, 6 p.m. For how to help people achieve their goals in the new year. So if anyone would like to attend that, I will be doing that. But yes, I hope to see more of you guys there. And yeah, I'm very excited to connect with everyone and to help people live their healthiest, happiest lives. You don't want to, going back to the last kind of couple minutes you were talking about just go, 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 checklist. Like you don't want to live your life just checking off a bunch of boxes because we're not robots. So, yeah, so we need to nourish everything. So yeah, thank you
Oh,
so much for having me. I'm so happy that we did this, and thank you so much.
I love that. So, listeners, remember there is more to life than checklists. I'm saying that to you because I'm saying that to myself.
Thank you again for listening to another episode of the Shirley Temple Society, a podcast that puts the fun in functioning alcoholic and reminds you that you can have a ball without alcohol. if you're choosing to live an alcohol-free lifestyle or are just a little dry curious. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Kaluos, and it has been my pleasure to share these experiences with you as we navigate this journey together. This episode was sponsored in part by Judy Shulak, your fairy godmother.
And don't forget, we get to define what balance looks like for us, and it's up to us to protect that energy that brings us the most peace. So just remember, every day is another chance to be grateful.
If you liked what you heard today and want to hear more, subscribe to our Sober Betties newsletter mailing list.